At a secret military base, a strange fellow takes a pair of tweezers and draws pictures on all the walls of the room. After a lot of effort, he falls to the floor exhausted, and soon afterwards, a general, together with the military scientist, enters the room to inspect him. It seems that the man lost his life due to exhaustion, but first he drew a picture on the wall, recreating the square of the Italian city of Trieste. In the same place, a boy called Michel is riding his bike to school when he stops at a store to see a Spider-Man costume. The boy intends to buy the costume after school, as he wants to impress everyone at tonight's masquerade costume party. On arriving at school, Michel meets Stella, the new girl in his class, with whom he is secretly in love. Not having the courage to talk to her, he secretly records videos of her on his cell phone camera. However, just as he was about to record another one, the teacher sees him using the device in class and, as punishment, takes his cell phone. Shortly afterwards, the school principal appears in the room, along with Giovanna, a police inspector, and Michel's mother. She reveals that one of the students, called Martino, has disappeared and asks the class to help her if they know where he is. After this warning, the inspector goes to Michel and gives him the snack he forgot at home. This makes the boy so nervous and embarrassed that blood comes out of his nose, and he asks the teacher to go to the bathroom. When he gets there, he is attacked by Brando and Ivan, a pair of students from his class, who, armed with a paintball gun, tell him to hand over the money. Michel reacts, but ends up being robbed, and Ivan gives him 10 seconds to try and escape. The boy then runs through the school, but just as he was about to flee down the corridor, he is knocked to the ground by a shot in the back. To make matters worse, the students step on his hand in front of the other students, making Michel a laughingstock. Later, the boy returns home, humiliated and with no money to buy a Spider-Man costume. When he enters his room, he meets Candela, his younger sister, who, like Michel, is also a big fan of superheroes. But the brother just ignores the girl and goes to look in the safe to see if there's any money left. With what little is left of his savings, he goes into town to look for another costume, when he sees a Chinese store with decorative items. As he enters, he meets a boy his own age and asks if there are any cheaper superhero costumes. The boy then shows him the costume of Xin Shao, a very famous hero in his country, but the costume looks more like pajamas with an old cape. Without much choice, Michel accepts and asks what this superhero's powers are, but the boy just tells him that he has to find out for himself. Later, Giovanna finishes work and returns home, where she finds her son dressed in his new costume, but the boy isn't sure if he's going to the party. Giovanna convinces him to go, because he needs to learn to overcome his fears, just like his late father, a legendary policeman in the city. The boy accepts his mother's advice and goes to the party, where he does his best not to attract the attention of Brando and Ivan. To his surprise, Michel bumps into Stella, dressed as Marie Antoinette, and she compliments his hero costume. The two start chatting, but Brando gets jealous and decides to spoil the boy's day once again. He then calls the whole class into the hall and reveals that he took Michel's cell phone from the principal's office. To make matters worse, Brando shows Stella the recorded videos, and on seeing all this, the girl asks if Michel really did it, but the boy doesn't react and tries to run away. However, Brando and the rest of the gang block the exits, forcing Michel to hide in the bathroom. With nowhere to go, the boy gets angry at his useless costume and asks what Xin Shao's powers are. By coincidence or not, lightning strikes next to the house, causing a blackout throughout the city. As soon as the power comes back on, Michel jumps out of the bathroom window and runs back home, having been humiliated in front of the class once again. The next morning, the boy wakes up for another day at school, but notices that Mario, his little dog, is watching him strangely. Michel doesn't understand, but he puts it aside because he has to hurry to get to school on time. However, when he goes to the bathroom to brush his teeth, he is startled to see that his body is completely invisible. Because of this, when Giovanna appears in his room, she can't see him, which only makes Michel even more confused. He then writes a message and puts it on the bed, telling his mother that he left early. Giovanna then sees the message and goes off to work, while Michel remains in his room, with no idea how to get back to normal. Now all he has to do is hide his invisible body by wearing gloves, a cap and dark glasses. Arriving at school, Michel soon realizes that it's risky to expose himself like this, but he decides to give it a test and removes all his clothes, heading straight for his classroom. Without being noticed, Michel is sure that he has the power of invisibility and decides to take advantage of it. To begin with, he sneaks Ivan's paintball gun and fires it at the blackboard, scaring the teacher, who expels Ivan from the room. Then it's the turn of Brando, who is playing in the tennis final on the school court. Thanks to his invisibility, Michel makes the boy miss every shot and he is humiliatingly defeated. Not satisfied with this, When Brando returns to the locker room, Michelle throws the tennis balls on the floor and begins to speak in a frightening voice. Believing it to be a ghost, the boy runs out of the changing room, while Michelle is amused by the whole situation. Finally, the boy decides to do one last test, this time taking a peek in the women's changing room. When he gets there, the boy frowns when he sees all the girls in the class and sits down among them, trying not to attract attention. To his misfortune, Stella accidentally throws the towel right where he was sitting. Startled to see the towel take on a human shape, the girl reaches out to take it away, but just then Michelle becomes visible again. When they discover the intruder, the whole class screams in terror and Michelle is almost expelled from school. Everything only gets worse the next morning, when the girls in the class look at him with contempt. The whole situation makes Michelle uncomfortable and his nervousness seems to activate the power of invisibility again. Fearing that someone will discover his secret, the boy runs out of the room and returns home, only to run into Candela, who is startled to see her brother's invisible face. As soon as the girl calms down, Michelle tells her everything that happened and says that he still hasn't learned how to control his power. After hearing the story, Candela is excited to have a brother with superpowers, but Michelle insists that his sister needs to keep this a secret. Later, the boy tries to find a way to control this ability when he hears Giovanna coming home. He quickly removes all his clothes to make himself invisible, and seeing the room empty, Giovanna believes her son hasn't arrived yet. She then calls a friend and tells her about her worries about Michelle, as he has been acting strangely over the last few days. In the middle of the conversation, Giovanna reveals that she is afraid that Michelle has discovered the truth, that he was adopted as a baby. On hearing this, the boy runs away from home and goes to the harbor, where he sits on a swing in shock at having discovered the truth. Seconds later, Stella also appears on the scene to rehearse some dance moves, when she sees the swing moving on its own. However, the girl is not alarmed by this and asks if anyone is around. Instead of revealing his identity, Michelle simply draws a face in the sand, followed by a smile. Stella is excited to meet an invisible being and challenges him to see who can swing the fastest. Michelle accepts and the two have fun together, but soon the girl tells him she has to go to ballet practice. She hopes to meet her invisible friend soon, which makes Michelle very excited. However, as he looks towards the port, the boy notices a man in sunglasses looking in his direction, as if he could see him even though he was invisible. The boy thinks it was just an impression, and hours later, he decides to pay Stella a visit. Arriving at her house, the boy draws the same smiling face on her bedroom window and Stella lets him in, happy to meet her invisible friend again. She covers him with a sheet and asks his name, but Michelle replies that he can't reveal his identity yet. Even so, the girl starts to get closer to make sure he's real, and seeing Stella so close, Michelle can't control his nervousness and his body becomes visible again. As a result, the boy runs away and returns home, where he tells Candela everything that has happened. His sister insists that Michelle tell her the truth, so the next night, the boy gathers his courage and goes to meet Stella. Together with Mario, the boy goes to the school gymnasium, where Stella is rehearsing for a gymnastics performance. But before Michelle arrives, an unknown man bursts in and, armed with a tranquilizer dart gun, shoots Stella. At the same moment, the girl loses consciousness and the guy takes her to his van. However, as he leaves the school, he runs into Michelle and Mario, who see Stella being captured and set off to confront the bandit. Even though he's just a kid, Michelle grabs the guy's arm and tells him to let Stella go. The bandit resists and knocks him to the ground, but Mario helps his master by biting the man's arm. Despite the effort, the guy manages to get rid of the pair, puts the girl in the van and tries to escape. Even so, Michelle doesn't give up and clings to the door of the vehicle, but he is once again pushed by the bandit, who drives off with Stella. Shortly afterwards, the police are informed about the incident at the school and Giovanna rushes to see if Michelle is all right. Fortunately, neither he nor Mario were hurt, but the boy tells his mother that Stella has been captured. The police start investigating, but Michelle is determined to find his friend and starts training on his own to try to control his powers. He then goes after his superhero costume, but discovers that his mother has put it in the wash, and when he tries to wear it, he can't turn invisible. Furious, the boy goes to his mother to ask why she washed the costume, saying that it took away his powers. Giovanna doesn't know what he's talking about, but Michelle only gets angrier, and as well as saying he hates her, the boy accuses her of not being his real mother. After that, Michelle leaves the house, but at the same moment, the glass in the bookcase shatters, as if the boy's fury had caused it. On his way back to the port, he is approached by the same man in sunglasses, who reveals that he is Andre, Michelle's real father. He also claims to be a special, a name given to individuals with powers capable of altering all of reality. Michel doesn't believe this, but Andrei tells him that in the past, he was one of the survivors of a nuclear war in Russia. While most of the population was wiped out, those who remained were affected by the radiation and developed special abilities. Because of this, the Russian government created a military laboratory called the Division, headed by a Cold War general, to test these super-powered beings. In Andrei's case, he developed the ability to read minds and erase memories. However, like the other specials, prolonged use of the abilities caused side effects, with Andrei losing sight in both eyes. Despite this, during his time in the lab, he met and fell in love with Yelena. Although the special ones were unable to have a child, the same didn't happen to Andrei and Yelena, who gave birth to Michel. However, the couple knew that the baby would be used as a guinea pig by the army, and one morning, they fled the laboratory. It wasn't long before they were pursued by the soldiers, so in an act of sacrifice, Yelena decided to face them alone, while Andrei fled with the baby. Like Michel, Yelena is also able to turn invisible, and using a special suit, she begins to attack the Russian soldiers. Unfortunately, one of the snipers sees a butterfly land on an invisible body, and without hesitation, shoots it. Apparently, Yelena was eliminated that day and Andrei traveled across Europe in search of a safe place for his son. It was then, using his telepathic powers, that he found Giovanna, an inspector who dreamed of becoming a mother, and left Michel in front of her house. However, the Division continues to search for the child, as he could be the key to creating an army of powerful individuals. After revealing everything, Andrei has to leave so as not to be discovered, but first he gives Michel a special suit. It has a symbol in the shape of a Russian S and is made from the same fabric as the suit worn by Yelena. Andrei then leaves, seconds before Giovanna arrives at the port, together with Dr. Basili, her colleague and forensic psychologist. She says she was very worried about the boy and promises to talk to him at home, after picking Mario up from the vet. Basili then offers to take the boy, and when they get home, Michel runs up to his room to try on the special outfit. A few minutes later, Basili calls the boy over to the table to have some tea while they wait for Giovanna to arrive. With his suit on, Michel goes into the living room, but when the doctor hands him the cup, he notices blood marks on his shirt. Suspicious, the boy says he needs to go to the bathroom and tries to run away, but Basili tells him that he has locked all the doors. With nowhere else to go, the boy puts on his costume mask, removes the rest of his clothes and, with a wave of his hands, manages to become invisible. Basili goes after him, but when he reaches the kitchen, Michel starts throwing knives at the man, but he defends himself with a chair. The boy then runs towards the living room, but Basili grabs a sack of flour, spreads it all over the house and manages to see the boy's footprints, fleeing back to his room. Thanks to this, Basili catches up with Michel, moments before he escapes through the window, and throws him against the closet. Apparently, the guy is also part of the Division and intends to take the boy to be tested in the laboratory and become a powerful soldier. However, Michel doesn't want to go with him, and in a surprise attack, he kicks the doctor and runs out of the window. When he reaches the street, the boy again turns invisible and runs through the city, when he finds Ivan sitting on his motorcycle. With no time to explain, he orders the boy to speed up the bike, and believing it to be a ghost, the young man obeys. Far away, in the Division's laboratory, Stella is locked in a room, where she meets Martino and Brando, who have also been captured by the organization. The two boys explain how they ended up there and Stella tells them that they need to escape as soon as possible. The girl looks for a way out and sees a passage in the ceiling, with the three of them joining together in a human ladder to escape. At the same time, Ivan speeds his motorcycle to an old warehouse, where Michel reveals his identity and tells him everything that has happened. On discovering that the boy has powers, Ivan begins to respect him and tells him that as well as Stella and Martino, Brando is also missing. The two then put together a plan to rescue them, but Michel has no idea where they've been taken. Meanwhile, Stella manages to get out of the room and finds herself on a huge cargo ship, surrounded by armed men. The girl does her best to go unnoticed, and using her gymnastic skills, she makes her way through a narrow iron structure. Finally, Stella finds an emergency light signal, and remembering her invisible friend, sends out a distress call. She then draws the same smiling face on the lamp and turns it on, minutes before being taken away by one of the guards. Far away, Michel sees the light signal illuminating the sky, and recognizing the drawing, he knows that Stella is there and sets off with Ivan to rescue her. Minutes later, the two arrive in front of the ship, but the entrance is full of armed security guards. Ivan tells Michel to turn invisible, and as soon as he activates his power, the boy pulls out his paintball gun and fires a shot into the power box. This causes an overload in the security system and Michel takes the opportunity to break into the base unnoticed. Inside, he locates the room where Stella is being held, and using his invisibility, he grabs a fire extinguisher, hits one of the guards over the head with it and takes his gun. Shortly afterwards, another guard appears, but Michel points his pistol at the man and forces him to open the cell. Thanks to this, he frees the trio, leaving the guards imprisoned in place of their friends, and finally reveals his identity. Everyone, especially Stella, is surprised to discover that Michel is a superhero. However, the boy says there's no time to lose and orders the three of them to flee the ship, but Stella tells him that there's another prisoner in another cell. While Michel goes with her to rescue him, Giovanna has just arrived home with Mario and finds the place completely overturned. Just then Andre appears outside, and with no time to explain, he warns that Michel he's in danger and the two of them need to help him. They then drive off in search of the boy and find Ivan, fleeing so as not to be discovered by the soldiers. Using his ability to read minds, Andre discovers that the boy knows where Michel is and calls him to help them in the search. In the meantime, Michel follows Stella to the prisoner's cell, but instead they end up in a submarine. Then the lights come on, revealing that the whole place is surrounded, and suddenly Stella points a gun at the boy. Michel doesn't understand what's going on, but then the division general appears, saying he's been waiting for the boy. He is also a special, with the ability to control other people's minds, and he has used this power to control Dr. Basili, just like Stella. The guy also turns out to be in the service of the division's true leader, none other than Yelena, Michel's mother, who is still alive. She has been searching for her son for years, and if Michel agrees to come to the division base, they will let Stella return home safely. Outside the ship, Giovanna breaks in looking for her son, when she meets Basili, who has no idea what has happened. She demands to know where Michel is, but Andre tells everyone to get out of there, because Michel isn't on the ship and a self-destruct system has been activated. With a few seconds left, Andre, Giovanna and Basili find Martino and Brando, and they all flee the ship before the huge explosion. Back on the submarine, the soldiers take Stella to an emergency capsule to be ejected back to port. Finally, the general says that Michel will soon be with his mother and the other specials, who are individuals superior to the rest of human beings. However, Michel doesn't want to abandon his friends, and in a fit of rage, the boy awakens a new power. With the power of thought, he is able to control objects and begins to destroy the submarine from the inside out. Michel then runs towards the emergency capsule, and together with Stella, the two of them activate the ejection mechanism and are taken back to the surface. The two are finally reunited with their friends at the port, and minutes later, the police arrive on the scene to investigate what has happened. In front of everyone, Michel reveals his power of invisibility and Martino announces that the boy is the city's new superhero, giving him the name the Invisible Boy. Michel is happy to see that, for the first time, the people around him respect him. Nearby, however, Andre calls the boy to talk to him alone, whereupon he tells his son that he needs to erase everyone's mind about what happened. The boy doesn't want that, but Andre warns him that as long as they know his identity, the division will come after Michel. With no other choice, the boy goes to meet Stella, and in a farewell tone says that he will meet her very soon. Stella is confused, but the two say goodbye with a kiss, and then Andre uses his power, making everyone forget that Michel is the Invisible Boy. The next morning, a press conference is held, and without knowing about the hero who rescued the children, the police give all the credit to Inspector Giovanna. Even knowing the truth, Michel is happy that his mother has become the town's protector, and the two reconcile. Hours later, the boy goes to the school gymnasium, where they are organizing a party to celebrate the reappearance of the students. Among them, Stella has also come, but the girl doesn't remember the hero who rescued her. Even so, as she is leaving the school, Michel gathers his courage and goes to talk to Stella, but is stopped by Ivan and Brando, who have also had their memories erased. However, the boy is undeterred and rushes past them to find Stella. Finally, outside the school, Michel asks the girl to accompany him home, and even though she doesn't remember anything, she is happy with the gesture and accepts. Everything is back to normal in the city, but at the division's secret base, one of the soldiers informs them about Michel's escape from the submarine. He also tells them that the boy's twin sister has been found in Morocco and they have started a mission to rescue her. Upon hearing this, Yelena, the division's leader, is pleased, and when she remembers the past, it is revealed that she had twins, with the two separated by Andre to protect them from the powerful organization. So what did you think of this movie? Leave it in the comments below. And if you liked the video, like and subscribe for more movie recaps. See you next time.